Alright, so I'm back with another video. This time we're doing something a little bit different. Aside from working on the actual car, the motor's in a million pieces right now. So I'm gonna take this time to put the brakes back together. I just sent these out and had them powder coated. There's so many videos on YouTube about powder coating calipers and how to do this and how to do that, but I'm not really seeing any videos on how to put fixed calipers back together. When you send out calipers to get powder coated, you gotta pop out the seals, you gotta pop out the pistons, take out all the bleeder screws, make sure it's a completely bare aluminum piece, because when they go in the oven, the heat from the oven can damage the seals and the little pass-through O-rings for both halves. So you wanna take everything apart. Like I just said before, there's not really a lot of videos out there about how to really put them back together. It's pretty easy to teach yourself. It's not rocket science, but some people like myself like seeing a visual on how to do something. So here, this one is already done. New pistons and seals are already pressed in. The pinch bolts are all torqued and marked just in case one backs out. I did put some blue Loctite on them. We'll get to that later on. But now, actually, let me put this over here so we don't damage it. So now we're gonna work on getting the seals back in, and then the piston, and then the dust guard. So for my car specifically, okay, so for the M4, the M3s, all the F80s, you can get a piston rebuild kit on World. I'll put the link in the description. They sell piston rebuild kits for the rear calipers, and for the front calipers, it comes with everything you need. It comes with the O-ring that goes inside the socket right there. It comes with a new dust guard for the piston itself, and then it comes with the new pass-through O-rings that go right there. That allows for brake fluid to travel from one half of the piston to the other. Again, I'll put the link for these in the description below. I'm also going to put the link in the description for these. These are new pinch bolts. Now, the old calipers do have these. So these are the bolts from the factory ones. See, they are a Torx. So it's an E10 and an E12 Torx, but they are blue. And I didn't want to reuse them, so I did get new ones anyway. You cannot get new bolts directly from Brembo. And Brembo also does not give you any of the torque specs because they're and they don't want you taking their apart. I sent a support ticket to Brembo a couple weeks ago asking what the torque spec were for these pinch bolts, and they basically told me to off. So I went ahead and kind of just figured it out. We'll get to that again towards the end of the video when it's time to put those back in. But again, I will drop the link in the description for these new bolts that I got. The rears are an M8 by 1.25 thread pitch, and then 60 millimeters in length. Again, they are metric, so I will put all those measurements and specs and then the links in the description. So I'm talking too much. Let's get into actually putting these back together. So we're gonna start with the front caliper, okay? And I'm actually gonna move you guys over here. All right, so I put you guys above me so you can get a better view of what's going on here. So the first thing, we're gonna take these new seals and dust guards out of the package. And where's it at? It's in there somewhere. There we go. So that's the O-ring, dust guard, and then the crossover seals. So first thing we're gonna do, take a little bit of brake fluid on a brush. First, blow out the inside of that socket. Make sure there's no dust and anything in it. And then lightly coat the inside of the socket, or the bore, or whatever you want to call it. Just some brake fluid, get a light film going on, get it into that groove where that O-ring sits as well. Okay, O-ring, dunk that in some brake fluid, shake it off a little bit, and then you're gonna fit this into the groove, right? There's a little groove inside this bore. You wanna get this O-ring into the groove. Make sure it is perfectly flat. off your fingers so you don't get brake fluid on your freshly powder coated calipers. Just get that whole O-ring and the inside of that socket covered in a light film of brake fluid. Okay, now we're going to take this dust guard. It is directional. So this side right here, you'll be able to tell once you actually look at it. It's pretty obvious which side goes down, which side goes up. Take the dust guard, light film of oil on the inner diameter, or sorry, not oil, brake fluid. Light film of brake fluid on the inner diameter of it. You're going to slip it over this notch right on the top of the piston, okay? So this is the top of the piston, this is the bottom, goes in this way. Take this dust guard, slip it over that lip, pull down on it just to make sure it is properly seated. Flip it back up. Now you're going to take a little bit more brake fluid, cover the piston with it, and then that is going to drop into here. It's going to take a little bit of elbow grease to press this in because you put that O-ring in there. It's going to be a tight fit. You're just going to have to push hard. Nothing is breaking, nothing is ripping, but that's what I'm going to tell you, to make sure that this O-ring is covered in brake fluid so you don't pinch it or rip it or, you know, pull it out of the groove. I want to make sure everything stays in place. So now that we have that right there, you're going to take your palm, put your fingers on the back of the caliper, and just press it in. Okay, that will go in. You'll feel it bottom out. Now you need to seat the ring of the dust guard into the groove on this side of the caliper. So what I like to do is press it as much as you can until you don't feel it go down anymore. And then we're gonna come over to the toolbox. All right, so now we're over at the toolbox. Lay a rag down so you don't scratch the caliper. Soft blow hammer, okay? Do not use this. Don't use this. Don't use a ball peen. Soft blow hammer, okay? I think this is a, I don't even know what the weight is. It's a, 24 ounce. It's a tiny hammer. We're gonna give this a few love taps to just really seat that dust guard into place. All right, so back over at the bench. Now that that seal is perfectly seated, you want it to be just about flush. I don't know if you can see this, I'm trying hard. I can't really see my screen right now, but you want that dust guard to be just about flush with the seat. Now that we're done with this side, set that off and move on to this one. Now it's going to be the exact same process for the back side of the caliper. Same thing, brush, a little bit of brake fluid, coat the inside of that piston bore. Make sure you get the brake fluid into the groove where the O-ring sits. O-ring, dunk it in some brake fluid, and then slip that in. It's pretty straightforward. Once you do the first one, you'll get the hang of it. It is not rocket science. Again, coat the inside of that O-ring. Dust guard. Coat that inner lip. And then slip it over the piston. Okay. Pull down the skirt, make sure it's properly seated in that groove. A little bit of brake fluid on the piston. And then drop it in. Same thing, you're just gonna give it some generous pressure. Make sure it is not going in crooked, has to go in completely straight so you don't pinch that O-ring inside. We're gonna press it in. There we go, bottomed out. Now that we've got the pistons, dust guards, and O-rings in, and start putting these halves back together. Any bolt works as long as it's the exact same dimensions as the factory ones. This is just a 10 millimeter instead of an external Torx. It does the same job. It's a grade 10.9, yellow zinc plated. Same shit, doesn't matter. A bolt is a bolt. We're gonna take, actually first, wipe off these mating surfaces. Okay, then we're gonna take these little O-ring crossover seals, slip them into place right there. Same on the other side. Both O-rings are in. Take these halves, put them together like this. Take these halves, we're gonna put them together like this, but just for extra precaution, because it's better safe than sorry, I'm gonna put a little bit of blue Loctite on the ends of these bolts right here. Slip that in there. Then do the same thing for the others. A little bit of blue Loctite. Slide that in. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, there are no torque specs available for these pinch bolts right here. So what you can do is we can go off this chart right here that I found. We're going to be using an M8 by 1.25. And so the recommended torque spec for a bolt that size is 37 Newton meters. So we're going to take this over to the vise, clamp that down, and we're going to torque the bolts down. All right, so caliper is in the vise. And the recommended torque spec for a bolt that size is 37 Newton meters. That's just a rough estimate. I'd rather be a little bit safe than sorry. I'm going to start with 20 Newton meters, 20 Newton meters, 20 Newton meters, and then I'm going to work my way up to 45 as the last joining torque. So we're going to set this to 20. Start with this one. 20. Now we're gonna crank this up. Now we're gonna do 45. Just wipe off any of that blue Loctite that seeped out. A little bit there. A little bit on the inside. Now this one is done. From this point, you can put your bleeder screws back in. I still have not gotten the stickers yet, the new M decal stickers for the front of the calipers. It's really hard to find a decal that like perfectly matches the ones that are on the factory calipers. Some of the ones you'll see on eBay and Amazon from China and like that, they're really big, they look a little bulky, they don't look right. I did find this one company out in Ukraine who makes very, very identical decals to the ones that come on factory. I'll also put a link for those in the description below. So both rears are done. I'm just gonna take a Sharpie and mark these. We're gonna put a little mark right there. Again, the torque for these are gonna be 45. That's just what I recommend. Don't quote me on that. That is just what I did based off of the numbers that I found on that chart. So I started with 20, remember starting from the middle and working your way out, and then 45, and then 45. All right, so now that the rears are done, we're gonna move on to the fronts. The fronts are the exact same process as the rears. The only difference is that these are a 4-pot or a 4-piston. The rears are a 2-pot or a 2-piston. So same deal as the rear calipers. Since we're using a different size bolt for the fronts, these are an M10 by 1.5, grade 10.9. Recommended torque for a bolt that size is going to be 75 Newton meters. Once I bring them over to the vise, I'm going to do I'll probably do 80. I'll work my way up to 75, and if I think it needs a little bit more, then I'll do 80. So now I'm going to cue the time lapse of the front calipers. I just wanted to pop in real quick, kill the time lapse to show a trick that I kind of just came up with. So just like any other seal, you would use a driver for pressing in the seal, whether it's like an output seal for a transmission or an input for a diff. Same shit, different toilet, doesn't matter. I got this socket right here. It's an 1.5 inch socket, and it is the perfect diameter of these dust guards. So I'm gonna lay this socket right over the dust guard, and that will allow me to tap this thing in evenly around the entire circumference rather than going, top, bottom, side, side. Just a trick, makes it a little bit easier. Do it or don't, doesn't really matter to me. Not everybody has an 1.5 inch socket to use, but just something I found that was helpful. All right, so my phone died while I was like halfway through the time lapse of the second front caliper. So I charged it a little bit. Now we're back over to the vise. And now we're gonna go over the torque sequence for the front calipers because they are gonna be a little different than the last one, just like I showed you on that chart on my computer screen. Since these are a different size bolt, M10 by 1.5 by 60, these are going to need a higher torque. Again, like mentioned before, Brembo does not give you torque specs, so we're just gonna go off of what that chart said based off of the size of the bolt. So we're gonna start by doing 20 Newton meters just to get them snug, and then we're gonna move to 45, and then the final torque is gonna be 80 Newton meters for all 4 of them. Again, we're gonna go from the inside and work our way out. So I'm gonna set this down to 20. Any minute now. Okay, we are at 20. Get it snug. Now I'm gonna move it up to 45. And then final torque is gonna be 80. The chart recommends 75, but I like to be better safe than sorry. So now we're at 80. And done. Okay, so now all of these calipers are done. Bleeder screws and caps are on. A little bit of brake fluid there, let me just wipe that off. Everything is all put together. Pinch bolts are torqued. Bleeder screws are in, and these are ready to go back on the car. Obviously, you're gonna have to bleed the brakes, but that is it. For anybody who stayed for the entirety of the video, I appreciate it. I hope this helped anybody who is having their calipers redone and just doesn't know how to rebuild them, or like me, you just wanna see a visual before you go ahead and tackle a job like this. If you have any questions, any tips, anything, please let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, please hit a like, share it, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter to me. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to do this to help some people. Thanks.